are at the consulate, understanding that since we have leaders of non-Jewish governments that understand the power of the Zohar, we were certainly sure that in a country as anti-Semitic as Argentina, there they would look for any protection. He was not admitted. He was not admitted, nor did he have a chance to even address anyone on the importance of having the Zohar. And exactly 59 minutes later, the consulate blew up. That is a piece of information without any comments. The Zohar that I wish to begin this lecture this evening, which I hope we ultimately will find, states clearly, and it is only through the Zohar that we have the ability to achieve an expanded awareness of what lies ahead tomorrow. Without the Zohar, there's absolutely no chance. With the Zohar, it also requires a little cleaning on the inside before we can understand the total magnitude of what the Zohar is trying to teach us. The Zohar states very specifically that the king of Persia, while today it's known as Iran, the king of Persia will ultimately rule over the entire world, and he will also beset himself upon Jerusalem, and he will conquer Jerusalem, and there will be countless numbers of victims. Countless numbers of victims. And only this evening, one of the people present here brings me a Wall Street Journal, page 1. Today, not yesterday, but today, which says, and a very long article, states that Iran is preparing for a new world order. Wall Street Journal, I didn't know they were in politics, but nevertheless, also indicating what the Zohar already revealed to us, that which took place 24 or 2,500 years ago in the then known Persia, Empire of Persia, that this scenario will again take place. However, the Zohar departs from the original story of Purim, where the Jews, and that meant the entire world, had a device. We know what that device is. When Mordechai returned from Jerusalem, he returned with the oral information of the Zohar. All of the information. And it was only through the information of the Zohar that the Jew could achieve the victory, which was without arms, without battle, but a total surrender on the part of the Dark Lord. Because Haman is not a person that once existed and no longer exists. Haman has been with us, specifically with the Jewish people, throughout the ages for the past 2,000 years. He is what we call, and what the Zohar refers to as Satan, whose main objective is to cause and wreak havoc and chaos on the entire world, not only the Jewish people. That also appeared this week. Also this week, the ugly head of what I consider to be the corrupt rabbis who are white outside, who appear to be white outside and are very dark inside. Because the color of skin does not determine whether one is evil or good. We found the Zohar, and I quote, in Parshat Shlach Lecha, Daf Samach Hey. And he's discussing here the aspect of Mashiach, Kloma, Ma nishma mizeh le'inyan melech HaMashiach. He also brings the verse from Daniel, which I will begin quoting, Paris prisat malchutecha behivet lemadai uparas. As we all know, Daniel was a major player in the scene of Purim as well. Although his name is concealed, but he is known, according to the Zohar and according to the Ari, the word Hatach, which appears in the Megillah, is really Daniel. And we also have learned in the seminar on Purim that Hatach is the word that we will be concentrating on this evening, which is the three letters of Kaf, Hey, Taf, which is the identical letters for the name of Daniel. And Daniel, incidentally, for those of you who are not familiar, Daniel, the book of Daniel, the major writings of Daniel, is written not in Hebrew, but rather in Aramaic, a language that is still presently spoken in Persia and the outlying sections, principally in the northeast of Iran. And on this verse in Daniel, he discusses what does this have, and if any, a connection with the coming of Mashiach. Amalo kachu vadai. It is absolutely so, because the destiny of Persia is locked up with the destiny of Mashiach. For in these words of Daniel, says the Zohar, we have a remez, we have a clue or a hint concerning what will take place in the time of Mashiach, meaning when he has actually arrived. Dahainu Mashiach ben Yosef will come, ve'achar kach yishlot melech Pras, and then the king of Persia shall rule, v'yichvosh harbe meluchot, he will conquer many, many kingdoms, v'hu yishlot al eretz hakdosha, and he will also rule over the Holy Land of Israel. 12 months, Yud Bet Chadash. And in the period of these 12 months, V'hu yishlot v'yarog rabim, and he will kill and destroy many, u'betocham Mashiach ben Yosef. This is the scenario. V'achar kach, after wrecking all this chaos, not only throughout the world, but also in Israel, Achar kach yipol melech Paras. And only then will the king of Persia fall. That Wall Street Journal must have taken a clue from the Zohar, because it describes Iran in just that position. It is a determination of conquest of the entire world, and before the fall of Russia, and when Russia ruled, all of the Muslim-dominated regions, as it was then called, are now countries. And the beginning of Iran's domination, which, according to the cassette, is already upon us. However, there is one major difference that the Zohar, throughout its teachings, mentions. While the cassette, as the stars, compel, meaning that is the scenario, it does not impel, meaning the same scenario of a king of Persia who will create havoc throughout the world, including Israel, victims of untold numbers. That aspect can be changed. The king of Persia will rule over Israel, but with hopefully, and I don't mean hope in a sense like the rest of the Jews, like in the concentration camps or in the end times of the Inquisition in Mexico, Brazil, Spain, and almost half of the known world then, wherever Jews lived, who underwent the Inquisition, who always hoped and prayed, never with success, never with success. And today, those same rabbis, all over the world, have openly declared, and a good majority of them, have openly declared war upon the Zohar. This sounds very strange, but that is also another Zohar, that the corrupt rabbis who will be part of the Erev Rav, and these are not my words, and I have not given one opinion this evening, will be in the forefront of the Satan to create bloodshed at the time of Mashiach. And I must tell you, that is another factor that has suddenly raised its ugly head in Toronto, Buenos Aires, only one day before the explosion. One day before the explosion. In Buenos Aires, and in South Africa, and in Toronto, and anywhere where the word of Zohar appears, there are rabbis who will openly condemn, without having ever studied the Zohar, without ever having met any one member of the center, have, as a kangaroo court, condemned anyone who will study Zohar. My friends, this is where we're at. We can either listen to those corrupt rabbis and leave things carry and move on as it has for 2,000 years, where the Jew must ultimately suffer together with the rest of the world, or are we going to change it? And one very important scenario, which some of you are aware of, most of you are not. The two major players in Iran today have understood what Jews have yet not understood, that the power of the Zohar can bring peace without bloodshed. The two major players of Iran today will be participating in a meeting brought about by the Zohar. This is the message that I have been given to all the centers throughout the world. If we have any feelings for our future, there is only one course that we can take, and that is to be certain that the Zohar becomes the dominant force and immediately remove the corrupt rabbis who are acting as the Erev Rav to prevent the scenario with its bloodshed. As the Zohar says, if things take its normal course, as it has for 2,000 years of misery and chaos, so shall it be at the end. I feel it is a responsibility of everyone who is connected to some spirituality not to fear that maybe we are at present in the minority, bodies, maybe we have less, but the power that we do have is the only power that could stave off what the Zohar predicts for this world, and assuredly, it is beyond question that the Zohar is addressing our period this evening. And this evening, unfortunately, if 80% or 90% of the Jews who have come to hear the Megillah have made a worthless trip, because without the meditation, without the Megillat Esther, without the revelation of the concealed, that book of Esther is not a recorded history of the Jews in Iran. It is a secret coded message put together with express purposes of drawing down the light that I shortly shall explain, is ready to be revealed tonight, but unfortunately to a handful, maybe a few thousand all over the world. But I don't know what numbers are required. But destiny is in our hands alone. And if the Israeli government still believes in a corrupt dream that by retaliation we shall succeed, they have been making the same mistake that Jews have made for 2,000 years. Physical force has never changed the course of history. And if we can in any way bring a little light to the leaders of the state of Israel, that this battle is not to be waged by retaliation, but maybe by bringing somewhat of a little more light to the world. Tonight, says the Ari, a light reveals itself. The light that reveals itself, as the Ari states, and the Zohar, in Tikkun Zohar, that all holidays will ultimately, at the time of Mashiach, disappear. There will be no use for any of the holidays. They will no longer be needed. The only holiday that will remain, the only book that will remain, not including the Torah, the only book that shall remain is Megillat Esther. Is Megillat Esther more important than the Torah itself? Furthermore, Megillat Esther was not presented on Mount Sinai, so we think. That's if you consider the Megillat Esther as a recording document of history. But Megillat Esther was another opportunity that the Jews in Persia took upon themselves that seeing what was coming before them, they revealed the secrets of the Zohar. That's what Megillat Esther means. Megillah means revealing, not book, because there's another word for book. Megillah comes from the word reveal. Reveal. To reveal the secret power that is given by the names of God. Those names, all of the names, appear in one coded instrument known as the Megillat Esther. Therefore, even on Mount Sinai, when the Torah was given by God himself, only 40 short days later, they were at the golden calf again. 40 days. But the Megillat Esther, with all of the kavanot, with all of the meditation that the reader, who will include all of us in his meditation, will include all of the different and varied names of God, which all represent a combination of what I shall shortly reveal to you through the Ari Kadosh, that represents the purpose of why we are here this evening. V'zeh sod kriyat ha-Megillah, says the Ari. This is the secret of the reading of the Megillah. Hitpashtuta be'ei kriyata, its extension by virtue of the reading, lit'om pirsum hanes, so that we can taste the nes, the miracle that took place 2,400 years in Persia. And what is it called? He'ara ateret malchut da'aba, amidgalit v'yotzeh lechutz. This instrument reveals to us a particular light known by its code word, ateret malchut da'aba, which would take me too long to explain in detail, as it would take me too long to explain in detail how to construct a telephone, although we use it. But we have the code name, Ateret Malka Da'aba, the He'ara. And, says the Yari, Gam Megillah below Yud, when we take the numerical value of Megillah without the Yud, it adds up to 78. And everyone knows what 78 means. It is the totality of the Yud Kei Vav Kei, meaning right, left, and center of the Tetragrammaton. 3 times 26, says the Ari, is also 78. Therefore, indicating by its word that tonight, through the process of reading the Megillah, through that process, we will reveal the He'arat Ateret Malchut De'aba. And now the Ari wants to explain how does Purim differ from Shabbat and other holidays. Is it higher? Is it lower? In fact, this is a holiday, with the exception of reading the Megillah, there are no other requirements. On Hanukkah, there is a requirement of lighting the candles, a requirement of lighting the candles for 8 days. On Purim, there are no requirements except the reading of the Megillah. You can ride, you can do everything on Purim, as opposed to the holidays, which most of us understand to be of a higher level, closely connected to the light. Says the Ari, Lechen la'atid lavo kol asfarim yitvatlu. All of the books, all of the 24 books of prophets, the 5 books of Moses, the writings, chronicles, etc., will become null and void, no longer to exist. Chutz mi Megillat Esther. Can you imagine the importance? Ki leolam lo haya nes gadol kazeh. For there was never a miracle, not even the miracle of the Exodus, not even the miracle of Hanukkah, no miracle that ever took place, including the splitting of the Red Sea, including the manna from heaven, the stone providing water for the Jews. Those miracles, Nisim, do not compare to the Nes of Purim. And yet, it did not involve all of the Jews. It only involved a segment of the Jews that lived at that time in Persia. Says the Ari that this Nes lo b'Shabbatot v'lo b'yamim tovim, because something unique happens tonight, as well as anyone reading the Megillah wherever it is required to be read. As tomorrow night, it will be read in Jerusalem. And if Mashiach doesn't come before that, we shall read it in Shush shortly. In this time, what is happening in the world of reality? Not the world we observe, because that is illusionary. Today, yes, tomorrow, no. Health today, tomorrow, no. Wealth today, tomorrow, no. But there is a universe called the Etz HaChaim where there is stability. It does not go up and down. And it is always our objective to connect to that reality. Says the Ari, tonight, for us, Zeir Anpin, which is the code name for the world of Etz HaChaim, the world where there is no chaos, no illness, no misfortune, just pure, unadulterated beneficence of God, that tonight, Zeir Anpin falls asleep. Do you know what happens before a patient undergoes an operation? What happens? I'm sure you all are familiar with the procedure. The patient is put asleep. Zeir Anpin is put asleep. Why? Because through our negative activities, Lashon Hara, Sinat Chinam, hating another Jew for no reason at all, only that he has something maybe that I also have. On this night, Zeir Anpin undergoes an operation, Dormita, and the Sirah, just like the procedure is on Rosh Hashanah. The purpose of which is, like in an X-ray, which determines what part of the body must be removed, and it is dark, it is black, as it appears on the X-ray. That blackness comes from human negative activity, because we are black. We are black. And it is the nature of black to latch on to light. To latch on to light. The same reason that we have the foreskin in the Brit Milah. Because from that organ comes life. Life. And light. And the mochin, which is, more specifically, the vessel that brings the light of God, when it undergoes this operation, everything then is transferred to Malchut, as we did on Rosh Hashanah, to our world. So it should not be in that position. It is removed elsewhere. It is removed in our midst. Now it comes back to haunt us. And says the Ari, just like on Rosh Hashanah, we use the shofar to eliminate, through this procedure of operation, to eliminate our own negativity. So tonight, on Purim, that same operation takes place. Because of the rachamim, because of the mercy of God that sees that if he did not institute within the cosmos some rachamim, we could never, chas v'shalom, make it. Never. But he's got to give us some assistance. That assistance is given tonight. And through the reading of the Megillah, and with the concentration on that kahat, and if you know a synagogue that is not concentrating on kahat, they could have gone home. For they have left the synagogue, as Rabbi Shimon says in the Zohar, with nothing. With nothing. Just as a shofar eliminates all of our negativity, so on Purim, that same procedure takes place by the reading of the Megillah. And the light of Mordechai, because he was just a channel, the light of Mordechai, through his participation, through his efforts, that each year, as contrary to Rosh Hashanah, each year, contrary to Rosh Hashanah, that when we blow the shofar, we have removed the negative activity of last year, but the light that is revealed by Zeir Anpin, by the tree of life reality, also ceases right after Rosh Hashanah. It does not continue. It is no longer needed. But says the Ari, Berachamav of Hashem, V'ratzah Hashem Yitbarach, Shebekol Shana V'Shana B'mei Purim, that titgaleh ha'era haniska b'yamim ha'em v'lo titvatel. That if we can draw down that light this evening, and the only way to do it is through the method of the Zohar, while the principle of tree of life, that light, as in all other holidays, as in Shabbat, it disappears, goes back, waiting for next year. The light that we receive, the Heyarah, on Purim, extends throughout the whole year, for 1 year. And each year, we can renew this Heyarah. Do you understand now why Purim is far more important than any of the other holidays? Because the other holidays are there for the assistance of accomplishing a particular purpose that day, and hopefully it was accomplished. But we then proceed on without that light, because the concept of Shavuot disappears. The concept of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot disappear. For Hanukkah, we capture it those 8 days. As much as we capture, and much as we can hold on to it, and the only way we can hold on to it is by not creating more negativity. But who is the tzaddik? Who is the tzaddik that can claim that he shall never sin from that moment on? Who is the tzaddik that can claim that Satan is not waiting to capture him? But when we capture and therefore we are on our own, strengthened by the particular holiday that we drew down the energy of Zeir Anpin, of the tree of life reality. But on Purim, with all of the different combinations, and with the force that can only come on Purim, the kahat, which also means takeh, to beat, we have an opportunity to beat down the Satan. And that power, says the Ari, continues on throughout the year, as no other holiday can furnish us with. V'nei b'kol shana v'shana b'mei Purim, and every year, in the days of Purim, kidei lekayem ha'ara ha'niska, and in order to retain and keep this light that has come down into our realm, whereas you know in all other holidays, we must elevate ourselves to a higher dimension. Therefore, you don't do the cooking, no fires, no other things that are prohibited, so that we can get out of the physical world and be closer connected to the tree of life reality. On Purim, that is not necessary. We bring that ray of light right into our midst. Therefore, it lasts for the entire year, whereas the other holidays that we observe throughout the year, we must elevate ourselves by the requirements stated in the Torah, in the Shulchan Aruch. Those requirements bring us to a connection with the tree of life, and hopefully that will sustain us. But following the conclusion of any particular holiday, that energy system ceases to function. Whereas on Purim, if we follow the three requirements, one of which says the Zohar, Anu tzrichim lasod gimel mitzvot, 3 mitzvot, which are Kriyat HaMegillah, Kidei lahamshich ulegalot ha'era, in order to reveal that light in our midst. That's why it can remain here. It doesn't shut off. It has filtered into our domain. Not has been up there in the other domain. And when the holiday ends, we are no longer connected with the tree of life support system. That is number 1. And number 2 is Tzedakah umatanot levyonim. There is no holiday, although they may be selling the aliyot on Yom Kippur, they may be selling other things in the synagogue on Yom Kippur and on Shabbat and so on. Some may consider that tzedakah. But if you ask the IRS, if you got something in return, some benefit, I think the accountant back there will substantiate what I'm saying. When you have something in return, then it's not a tax deductible. Therefore, we do not give tzedakah on holidays. On this holiday, the only holiday, we are required to give tzedakah and matanot le'evyonim, and also gifts to the poor, which you all understand why it says gifts to the poor and not tzedakah, charity to the poor. On Purim, as in Persia, what they gave, the wealthy people gave to the poor people were not tzedakah, but gifts. And the only time one receives a gift is from a friend, a relative, or someone whom you cherish, you value, and they give you a gift. You are more honored by the gift than the person giving. That is the way in Persia of old. They gave tzedakah. They made that poor man feel that he was doing a turn for the giver, for the donor. He was doing him a favor by accepting it. That's the way the poor man felt. And then, of course, then comes Achila V'Shtiyah, which everyone should have a Sudah tomorrow. Achila and Shtiyah, because, says the Ari, why is it called Achila, meaning eating, and why is Shtiyah, drinking? What would happen if we called it another word? We called it Buba, baby. I don't think anybody would object if we call food baby. And we'd call children food. Says the Ari, because Achila and Shtiyah contain the Yud K. Both of them contain the Yud K. The Yud and the Hey of the upper tetragrammaton. That is where we're connecting through this function of the Seudah. These are the three requirements that must be met. Outside of these three requirements, there is none. But we must understand that the reading of the Megillah is a requirement for the purpose of revealing the secrets. And with that, we shall begin the reading of the Megillah.